All right, welcome everyone. Dr. Josh Wagner here with special guests, Dr. Scott Hansen and superstar wife and office manager, Christina Hansen. You're on this call because you saw the opportunity to come and hear a rockstar couple talk about their growth trajectory. And Scott and Christina are going to share what they consider three of the most valuable aspects of their growth journey. I got the pleasure of starting to know them back in 2019, 2020. It all blends, everything blends in a big mush around those years. And Scott came, Christina was not in the practice yet, but they had actually met in a practice previously, not yet married. And Scott, I believe you were like stuck in that like 20s, 20,000 a month, mid 20s, very common chiropractic stuck point. I think you had a CA, or I don't know if you were doing everything by yourself, but probably felt like there was a banging head against the wall kind of feeling. And before we get into strategy, can you guys share just a little bit more about your story, like where you guys met, how you chose to go out on your own, what kind of technique you do, things like that. I'm going to spotlight you.
Yeah, so I've been in practice since 2012. I did my postdoctoral training in South Florida. I do upper cervical, I do NUCA. I was there for 2.5 years, and that's where I met Christina. Christina was hired on to the office of hired for screenings and like a public liaison to help with screenings. And we hit it off, and the restraining order didn't work, and so she called me back here to California. And so yeah, we've been together ever since. So yeah, my background is NUCA. I did that for a very long time, and that's all I did. But then a couple years ago, I started to incorporate some other services, which we'll get into later, which made a big help. But yeah, that's my background.
Awesome. So started in your own practice in 2012, that right?
I'm sorry. No, I was an associate doctor in Florida, and then in 2014 opened my own practice, and tried to do everything by myself for a long time. Went through a handful of different practice management groups, and nothing ever felt right. It was all just fake. It was all sales. It just like nothing was authentic. And then that's what drew me to you, Josh, was just the authenticity of everything and really making it about, the patient experience and what's the best for the patient. Yeah. And so I think it was the end of 2019 is when I started with you, and yeah, it's been awesome.
Awesome. And Christina, so from your angle, you guys met at a practice where Scott was associated, you were working in the practice. Scott went on his own, but like it wasn't until last year that you actually joined the practice. Just so that
sort of. So we moved out to California, and I opened the practice with him. So I was his front desk and CA for the first like year or so, and then went off, did my own like corporate job for about 7 years, and then just joined back in April of 2023.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's been a little over a year.
Yeah.
Cool. And remind everyone where you currently practice.
Orange County, California. We're in Laguna Hills.
Very cool. Okay. Let's get into, there's 3 strategies that you're going to attribute to a lot of your growth. Not just doubling, but you had a huge month one of the months this year.
February.
What was that top number you hit?
75.
75. Oh, okay. I thought it was like 90 or something. Or 75 was the top one? Okay.
That's the next one.
75K. And how much of it was insurance?
0.
Cool. And I don't even necessarily know that. I just figured it was mainly cash, but 0. So I want to give just some context to the group. All cash practice, hit 75 one of the months this year. And let's get into what's the first strategy that you felt made a big shift going from stuck to moving forward?
The very first thing that we implemented was cutting back our hours. In the beginning, I thought I needed to be here for a super long time to get people to show up and have these extended hours for people to be here. And so I started slowly. I cut back 30 minutes in the evening. I went from 7 to 6:30, and literally that 30 minutes felt like 2 hours. It was like such like a weight off my shoulders. I hated being here between 6 and 7. I'm just like, I wanted to get home. I wanted to see Christina. I wanted to eat dinner. And so I pulled back the 30 minutes, and then I did that for 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm doing another 30 minutes. And so we cut a full hour off, and we were actually just talking that last week we were driving home and we were like, can you imagine still being at the office right now? Like, that's like one of the best things I've ever done.
And how many emails did you get from patients saying, who do you think you are?
It was 0. Yeah. It was not even a big deal. And like everyone that was in between the 6 to 7, they're like, oh, yeah, I could totally come 30 minutes early. I just waited around because I thought it would be less crowded. And so
All right. With that being said, why did you originally choose to practice till 7 because that was the hours of where you associated, or you just figured, oh, it'll make it easier for people after work? What was the reason?
Yeah, both. And I was like, I'm new in practice. I need to have more extended hours. I want to see like extend my hours so I can fit more people in. And that was what I had in my own head. And yeah, it's not the case. Yeah.
Was there any switch for the morning, or the morning was fine? It was just reducing the evenings.
Morning was fine. I'm not an early riser, so I've always started at 9. And so that works good for me. The idea of, starting at 7 a.m.
Yeah, me neither. And how about, so you talked about reducing the day so your evening isn't as taken up. What about the week schedule? Was it always what you're doing now, or did you condense that?
So I've always been Monday through Thursday. But we were doing stuff in the beginning, like Friday, Saturday, even sometimes Sunday. I was like making exceptions for patients, and I'll do a report on a Friday, or I'll bring you in on Saturday, and I cut that out too. It's just like I need time away. I need to recharge. You would think by having more time available that it makes you better, but it doesn't. Like it adapts you. So you need
cool. All right. So one thing I want to talk, and I give you so much credit, Scott, for cutting the cord and being like, hey, I'm not going to stay till 7. 2 weeks into reducing it by 30 minutes, you knew you could do it at another 30, and getting back an hour really makes a difference for life. I get it. How this relates to anyone listening, whether or not you love or don't love your hours, this is an example, not really of how your hours increases your practice, even though that does play a role, but the overall concept of standing up for yourself. I don't care if it's your fees, your team, your services, what you choose to wear in practice. As chiropractors, the blessing and the curse is we have complete freedom to pretty much do whatever we want. That's the blessing. The curse is, because of that freedom, oftentimes we make choices that aren't really what we want, but think we have to do because they do it, or he said, or she said. And there's nothing wrong with staying in practice till 7. If you love it and if you're okay with it. Obviously, Scott and Christina, that wasn't great for their life. And no doctor is expected to stay in practice till 7. If he wanted to practice 2 days a month, that wouldn't work out well. And most doctors are expected to be in more than 2 days a month. But we're talking about nuances. And so this is a kind of an acute example of the bigger theme of when you own a practice. Yes, there are certain like bumper lanes of, I'm trying to think of a good example. If you're practicing much less than 4 full days a week, you are compromising and you are sacrificing the size of your practice. But it doesn't mean the more days and the more hours you practice, the more money you'll make, the more people you'll see, the better practice you'll have. After a certain amount, it has an inverse relationship, just like Scott was saying, where he was, what was the word? Like you just didn't want to be there between 6 and 7. Mm-hmm. How do you think that's going to affect interactions with patients? how do you think that's going to affect the metaphysical aspect of the phone ringing, of new patients booking during that time when the source doesn't want to be there? So I'm sharing this because as the business owner, we have 1,000 decisions we make of how we want to do it. And some of them I guarantee you don't like doing, but you do it because you think you have to, or that's the only way. And again, it could be your fees, it could be your recommendations, it could be your consult, it could be what you wear. And the more you don't listen to yourself or others who have done it a different way, and it works, the more you are sabotaging and handcuffing yourself to both be in pain and not grow. So Scott, thanks for like starting with that example, because even though it's a small example, it's really, it can be applied to so many aspects of practice. Just thinking about that, and you may not have an answer, but were there any other areas maybe where it was similar? Like you did this because you just felt you had to, or that's what everyone else did, or that's what you were told to do, but like it just didn't feel good and you let it go and everything worked out or worked better?
I don't know. Can you?
A super minor one would be like the old practice that he worked at. They always wore like they were clean shaven,
Oh yeah.
and they wore their button up with the tie, and he hated it, and he just never felt like himself, and he felt like he looked really young, especially when he was first in practice. So he just was like, "This doesn't feel like me, so I'm going to do what feels more like me and more natural."
Yeah, perfect example, attire. And hey, there's certain attire that looks better than others, but what's most important is that you feel comfortable in your own skin or in your own clothes and not trying to fake it. Like, I'm going to wear a light white lab coat, but I feel really uncomfortable, but I think people will take me more seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll backfire. Yeah, good example. And hey, anyone who's on the line, if you have an example like outside of hours or attire where you know whether it's yourself or docs fall into that trap of like, this is what we should do, this is what they say to do, but it just doesn't feel right, throw it in and we can talk to that. Because again, there's like bumper lanes of, hey, within this realm you should stay, but it doesn't have to be this specific route. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Next one is hiring proper team. Hiring true A players. So after Christina helped me open the office, and then she stepped away. I tried to do it by myself for a long time, and then when I finally did decide to hire, I didn't do a very good job of screening these people out. So I was like, I just need help. Like someone will come in, they'll help, they'll do what I say, and that was it.
You needed someone who spoke English and had a pulse.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I had for a long time. And so the first thing that I noticed when Christina came back is how awful these other employees were. Like, I mean, obviously I'm a bit biased in this, and she's my wife, but I mean, just to have a true A player and have someone that I can delegate things to or do things before I even have to ask and take the initiative on things is so big. And it takes so much off my plate where I can just do what I love to do and not be patient.
Give some examples, because in Patient Mastery, we talk so much about the difference between A player, B player, C player. You don't even really have to talk about much because they're an obvious sabotage, so you usually get rid of them. But chiropractors are notorious for struggling with holding on to B players because we feel bad about firing people and we don't realize how much they're sabotaging the practice. We think, oh, they don't do everything right. They're okay, but like the practice is all on me. Like, yeah, they answer the phone when it rings. Yeah, they show up on time. But what are some differences now that are so like, what didn't you see before Christina showed up that now you realized they weren't cutting it and like would fall into a B category? What are like tangible examples? Because I want other docs to hear it, because so many put up with, and a lot of it unknowingly, a B player and don't realize that that's stopping them from another 10, 15, 20,000 a month without doing anything differently. just an A player at the front desk?
Yeah. I mean, energy. I mean, that's like the first thing is, you know, if they're a B player, they're showing up because they want a paycheck. They don't really care. They're not engaged. They're just like, they're there. They'll do things like you said, you know, they have a pulse and they answer the phone and they'll do what you ask, but maybe not very well. But just the energy that they bring, you know, when they walk in, they see Christina, she has a smiling face, like she's peppy, like people are like, holy crap, like I love being here. And I just actually just had an email about an hour ago. A patient was just complimenting myself and Christina and the team, just like you're going to the energy just felt so good. I love being there. She even get adjusted yet. She just came in for a new patient exam. So energy levels are just through the roof. Yeah.
Okay. And when you say energy, so when we're talking A, B, C, a C player will show up late, a B player will show up on time, an A player will show up early and like prep and go above and beyond what you were even expecting. You know, the C player will blatantly not do what you say or talk back to you. The B player's going to do what you ask and do it. And the A player is going to give suggestions of, you know, we could do this even better, and go above and beyond.
Mm.
Here's 2 ways to really do a gut check of your team. Are they A or are they B? Each team member. 1, do you know they deserve a raise and you're just happy they haven't asked for it yet? And if they did, they'd absolutely get it because you know they're worth so much more than you're paying them. So that's first thing. If it's not so obvious, oh, they deserve more, that's telling. Second is if you woke up tomorrow and you didn't have any of your team, you were solo, which ones would you hire back ASAP? Or which ones would you hire ASAP? And it's okay if you have a little knot in your stomach, like, ooh, I don't know. I've been there. I've been there for years. Why? Because I'm a chiropractor and I get stuck in the I feel bad about firing and it's good enough. Or before you have an A player, not even realizing what it could be. So that's a big thing. So a lot of chiropractors have never even had an A player. And an A player does not mean they graduated with a 4.0 GPA or they had some stellar job, you know, like managing people and now they came to a chiropractic practice. No, it is all about attitude, energy. And if you have those 2, like basic understandings, like this is a chiropractic practice, it's not so complicated, but it's attitude and energy. And that's what makes an A player. What was I going to say? Oh, so if you're hearing those 2 questions and you've got that kind of pit in your stomach, that's a good thing. That's awareness. It doesn't mean go fire someone tomorrow, but it does mean now you're aware of one glass ceiling. Glass ceiling is something that not only is breakable, but you don't realize why you're hitting it. You think it's not enough new patients. You think it's because you don't know how to get paid cash. You think it's because insurance companies are trying to crush you, whatever. No, if you have a B player, that's the thickest glass ceiling right there. What else on that topic?
I mean, with Christina in particular, I mean, she's very good at the things that I am not. So like training, setting up team meetings. My team meeting used to be like a 5-minute huddle. Like that was my team meeting. And now
because you didn't want to do
full
it.
on.
This is our agenda. It's colored, like
Yeah. So yeah, she loves stuff. She loves to create lists. She loves to create all these different, training regimens, and so that's where she shines. So as you saw with the paper, so she runs everything. That has really, bumped our organization, our energy. We're on board. Like we know what our goals are for the week, for the month, and it just gets us off on the right foot for sure.
Something that we talked about so eventually we're going to be hiring another CA. So as it stands, we have an office of Scott and myself, and then we have a tech who's part-time. and she does some of our therapies, but we really need a full-time front desk so I can go back to like managerial things. And something that we really are looking for is somebody who like you really trust. Like you just know, and you're fine with questions, you're fine with like, hey, clarifying like this is what you want me to do. But just like you know in your gut that like you hand this thing to this person and they're gonna do it amazingly well and make good judgment calls because your business is your baby, And so I think that that's something we've talked about a lot is like delegating something, and even though it's uncomfortable to delegate it, getting to the place where you just totally trust that person with their judgment and their abilities.
I love it. And I didn't share this, but Christina actually does coaching inside of Patient Mastery for doctors, CAs. Christina, can you share from your perspective of being on that side and interacting with a lot of CAs? Surely you're interacting with A's and B players. What are some other things you notice where like you just wish docs would do this better, do this right? Like because you see it in the CAs.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that I see a lot is like it might seem like a small thing, but just like a really personable person, like somebody who could just chat up any one of the patients and really make them feel loved. That's something we had with our last CA who left, and she was just really good at just sort of like both energetically and physically like loving on the patients, like giving them attention, asking, remembering details about oh, like so and so went to Disneyland and like that was one of their third essentials. Like, did she get to go to Disneyland yet? And then be like, oh yeah, she went last week, and like just kind of being involved in the patient's life in a way, like from afar. Also just like I see a lot in the CA calls is CAs who have such great ideas and are like a little hesitant to like bring it up to the doctor because the doctor's been doing things in such a certain way, like the paperwork the same way, the filing system's the same way, and the CA is like, well, I don't really want to mess with it. He's been doing it this way for 15 years, but I do think that we could go electronic. It would save us all some time. And I'm like, ask him, like, and like show him, like, you do 2 files and show him how much quicker it is, and just having like the doctor, I guess I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but like the doctor instilling the confidence in that person to like make suggestions and being open to them. Because if you hired an A player, they're going to have lots of suggestions. And I would highly encourage them to like at least be open to them.
Yeah. And to go deeper into that, if your CA isn't giving suggestions of we could do this could be better, hey, it may not be that you've made it uncomfortable for them to, or they don't think they're allowed to. It's just that they're probably not an A player if they're not providing any suggestions because they're seeing things from different angles than you ever will, just based on their position. And they have a lot of insight. And that's another telling thing if they're not giving ideas and suggestions. And then when you said first about the personable, I remember of my first few, I started off with part-time CAs back in like my first year in practice. And I remember when one stood out, her name was Shay. And you could hear when she was on the phone with a patient, whether it was someone she had never talked to before or someone she knew from the practice, just how she would say, how are you? Like most of us just say, hey, what's up? Hey, how are you? And we know like you're not expecting an answer. It's kind of just jargon and formality. She would say it and you knew she actually cared and she was waiting for an answer. And it was so obvious and so tangible and it was so unique. And so I urge you to stand up for yourself, your practice, and your patients by only having a true A player representing your practice at that front desk. Such a vital role. So much more important than getting 10% better at your technique or going to the next technique seminar or any of that stuff. If you want to help more people and make more money. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with increasing your technique, but we oftentimes go in the wrong direction and we actually increase our technique, help less people, and make less money. Okay, before we go on, there's a couple questions in the chat. So back to the thing about standing up for yourself, what you want to do. And we talked about hours and attire. Dan asks, can't wear tennis shoes? ? So my response, Dan, to that would be, when you have a waiting list practice, of new patients, you could do whatever you want. Until then, you should show up like a doctor. And very few doctors wear tennis shoes. Pretty much the ones with waiting list practice, plastic surgeons, they can wear tennis shoes. So that's my best input. Christina or Scott, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely, you said you use the example of bumpers. Like, I mean, you want to be comfortable, but still, I mean, you still have to look professional. And like the dress shoes that I'm wearing right now, they're called Wolf and Shepherd. They're the most comfortable dress shoes I've ever worn in my life, and they're nothing fancy. But you can dress them up, dress them down. But they are incredibly comfortable. You don't have to wear, the hokas or anything like that at work, but you can find comfortable dress shoes.
We're typing the name in. Wolf and Shepherd. Okay. And I'm forgetting the name of the brand. I think it's with a C. It's a very common brand that makes sneakers and dress shoes, but I forget. It's in the portal. But I know there's a dress-looking shoe that is like
Cole Haan, yeah.
Cole Haan, yes, yeah. So yeah, I would do those. Dan, I understand if you're doing like stretches and like getting on your knees and like your feet are all bending. I get it. A normal dress shoe is not comfortable. There are adaptations without having to do tennis shoes. It's funny. We were just talking about this on Friday's group call. Steve Knighton up in Canada. I mean, the guy gets over 100 new patients a month without, I don't know if he does much ad spend or not. He knows what he's doing. He gets over 100 new patients a month, and he has 40 different pairs of multicolored tennis shoes that he wears because his patients love them and they always want to know what color he's wearing. And he can do that because of the practice he already has. It didn't start like that. Next question from Daniel. I guess you were talking about, so your cash practice, you do NUCA plus some therapies. Dan asks, how do you incorporate therapies in a cash practice? Dan, can you speak that more out? Because there may be different angles you're taking in that. Do you mean like, how do you charge? How do you combine NUCA with therapies, like clinically? What's the actual question, if you can? Okay, yes, charge. NUCA is about holding, and the visit price is usually finite, or the care plan. How do you quantify it all? Okay, so let's just say does that make sense? Kind of, but Dan, I think you're stuck in the weeds of like Chiro babble. Not that you're nuts, but what you've been taught. If I have an ice cream truck and I sell ice cream sandwiches and they're $1 each, I can also sell slushies and they're $1 each or $2, and then I sell both of them for $3. So it's no different if someone gets NUCA with Scott. He has plans if it's a NUCA patient, and if someone's getting NUCA and like I know Scott uses Shockwave, and if they're getting NUCA and Shockwave, well, then it costs more. And he charges whatever he wants because he's in charge. And that's what we teach. And you charge what you want to get paid. That's my quick response. But Scott, this is your show. How would you respond to that answer?
Yeah, I mean, we have probably 16 to 20 different types of plan it's all based on time too. So if they're a NUCA patient only, then they're 3-month NUCA plan. That's all we do. Then that's a certain price. If they're a NUCA patient, but then they have a shoulder issue or they have a knee issue, well, I love NUCA, but it's not going to fix shoulder tendonitis. But then we would incorporate the Shockwave. Or let's say that they're a disc patient as well. So then we're going to incorporate the decompression. So it just depends on what's in front of you clinically. Whatever I think they need is what I present to them. And whatever time frame I think I need to get them better.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, that when you realize that you could be 100% clinically honest and integrity, not one size fits all, everyone gets the same thing, you realize that you don't have to charge what Medicare charges if it's not a Medicare patient. And you can actually charge whatever you want because you're the boss and it's your practice. And not every patient is going to be your patient, and that's okay. And you actually you don't start from scratch. Every new patient gets a unique care plan catered to their nth degree, but you have different care structures and protocols based on different case presentations, and they'll all fit into one or another. But yeah, Daniel, I think you may be stuck in like just very old Chiro paradigms of like, I don't even know, one size fits all, or I don't know. Because I say that because I just see it still being taught in the field. Yeah. But if there's more nuance, just type it in the chat and we will try to answer that. Daniel? Okay. Anything more when it comes to standing up for yourself with 18 members?
Well, since we lost our last A player, she had to step away from the office. And she's been gone a couple months now, and so with that, we're taking our time with hiring our next person. So we've done a couple of interviews. Nothing, or we're not going to settle at all. That's the big thing. Is like I'd much rather take our time and really find a true A player before we make the hire than have someone a B or C in the meantime.
So smart. What are some of the things you're doing in the application hiring process that helps you weed in and out A and B people?
So just to speak a little bit on our last VA, she came through Indeed, and the qualifications that stood out to me was that she was a doula at one point. So that to me is like holistically minded, very, very sweet demeanor, much more quiet, like literally my polar opposite in terms of like personality. But a very calming presence in the office. But in terms of like, so I wanted to speak on that because I don't even feel like we fully appreciate her until she was like gone now. Cause like our last 2 months have been much more difficult. Just workload has been different. Like the flow of the office has been different. Even our collection, it's like our collections have suffered. And so it just really goes to show how much that person and dozens of patients were like, oh my gosh, I love Jocelyn. She was so great. And I'm just like, I miss her too, But and in terms of the application, like I'm not gonna interview anybody who doesn't have a proper resume anymore. Like it's tough with this age group that we're seeing now in terms of who's applying, but that's like a super standard for me now. I will put in the ad like different not really sneaky or anything, but it'll be like, with your application, please send it to this place with the address, with the subject line that says grade or whatever. And it just shows like their attention to detail, that they like read the full ad. It's not super long, and that they like, it's not just like blindly applying to everything that comes across their desk. And then attire is a huge one. Like we've had loads of patients who come, or not patients, applicants who come with like cut off shorts, and I'm just like, why would you do that?
Even the phone call before we even bring them in is like, what's their energy like over the phone?
Yeah, how do they sound on the phone? That's a big one because I call places all the time, and when it's somebody who's like, hi, how can I help you? You're like, wow, like I really want to come there. Yes, Dan, literally cut off the ADD shorts. Yes. So it's a wild world, I will say, applying, but it's be steadfast in like what your perfect fit would be. We even went as far as to like basically make a wish list, like almost like a vision board, if you will, but it's not a visual, it's just a wish list of like, these are the qualities that we need. We need them to be high energy, like organized, punctual. We need Spanish speaking in our office. We just a laundry list of all these things that we need, and because we think that that's what the person will they'll excel at this job and they'll like doing the job and stay with us, as long as possible. But yeah, I think that's the main part.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the actual logistics, is Indeed add a little secret thing in there. Then
What does that mean? A little secret thing in there?
that was the like in the subject line of your please send all resumes to XYZ email address. In the subject line, please include whatever I decide that day, like the letter, like the number green or the word green
Right.
in the subject line for that, like attention to the detail.
Perfect.
And then phone interview. We haven't done it yet, but I think we're gonna do first interview is gonna be Zoom. Just it's a lot less time consuming because there were so many people who we had for interviews who just like never showed. So that, and then first interviews with myself only, and then get a feel for them, and then second interviews with myself and the doc, and then we do a working interview for one either half day or full day depending on their schedule, and obviously paid, and then we just go from there.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the third pillar strategy that you want to talk about and is important in the growth process.
Yeah, it's staying connected to this group and not being on your own island. My natural tendency is when things get tough, like I want to do it myself. I want to, just try to figure it out on my own. And that's just where I naturally go. And we have so many resources in this group, whether it's you, Josh, we have Jamie, Jerica, all the other docs that are a part of the program. Like people are always willing to reach out and help. So, and every time I feel like I can't figure it out, and then I'm like, hey, dummy, I need to talk to someone. And then I bring it up to the group, questions get answered, and it just makes life so much easier. So it's just really, take advantage of what we have here with this community.
Yeah, I find that just as much with chiropractors, the feeling like you're on your own island, or choosing to be on your own island, or not realizing how valuable rubbing up against other people's energy, ideas, leadership is. That's just as significant a sabotage in the chiropractic world as is I could only do it this way. I have to recommend everyone gets a year of care. I can't charge more than $45 for a visit, or, all these sacred cows that are, I have to practice on Saturday mornings if I want to see kids, or, people who work. Christina, could you speak to that from either yourself or like what you've seen in Scott, the difference between when he's just checked in and connected to others compared to when he's head down in the sand?
I can't say enough about him just getting to a place where he will reach out and get such valuable input from, whether, like you said, if it's you or if it's Nitin, or just him being like, I've been with him forever, so I can see the wheels turning, and you won't say anything, and I just see the wheels turning, and I'm like, sometimes I literally am just like, just ask the group. Like, I don't even know what the question is. I'm just like, just ask the group. And he's like, got it, And so like, he just comes back like more confident and more fired up about what his dream was, because he got into chiropractic to help people. And I think it gets difficult to, like you were saying, get into the weeds, and I can't spend more, more than, or I can't charge more than this amount. And when you were with a bunch of docs who were thinking outside the box and doing different things, you come back with way more ideas. So I've seen it impact him physically, mentally, emotionally. Like, us joining this group has impacted our personal lives almost just as much as it has our practice. In the 4 years that we've been a part of it, or going on 5 years now, we've got engaged. We bought a motorhome. We travel like crazy. Like, we got married. Like, I joined the practice. Like, I don't think that any of that would have happened in this timeline, in the very least, if it wasn't for him leaning towards people who push him to just keep being better.
100%. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Just because you touched on the travel more than ever, motorhome, can you share some more aspects of think back a few years ago, just the differences in like quality of life, whether it's like Friday's golf is so much better, or how many times you're taking those long weekends or longer breaks. Yeah, think about back to like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, just what are different quality of life differences when things are going, as things go better and the money's better.
Yeah, it's so important to take time off and to pre-schedule it. That in the past we would be pedal to the metal, and then we're burnt out, and then okay, we need a vacation, but collections suck, so I don't want to take a vacation, and just because it's not planned. And so when these last couple of years, we've done a better job of okay, like looking at a calendar. These are the times that we're going to take off. We have it pre-planned. When we're on our vacation, we know when the next one is coming up. We know we have these goals that we're working towards, and every time that we come back from a vacation, things jump up, and it's just like you got to take care of yourself and you got to recharge, or else you're not going to be at your best.
I'm going to answer Dan's question. So the way we do it, Dan, is we pulled out the calendar in end of December. We went on a vacation. We usually try to take the week between Christmas and New Year's off, just because it makes sense. Everyone's away. And we went on a trip in our motorhome or our trailer, and we just looked at the schedule and we looked at, okay, this time of the year makes sense for us to go. This is what's going on with this time of the year. My sister's just having a baby, so we're going to go away this week. And we just literally mapped it out and don't even worry about like, what is that going to look like collections wise? Like, we just know these are the days we're away. But to answer your question, we do multiple vacations. We try to do 2 to 3 weeks a year. So far this year we've done 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 full weeks off.
2 full weeks off. And we were planning.
But separate, not like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So 10 days away from the practice. Total.
And then we have loads of weekends away. And then we have another week planned coming up in October. So.
And when you're done seeing patients Thursday, end of day, and you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no patient schedule, it's also a huge difference of even just taking 3 day, 2-3 day getaways and not having to close the practice for a day. Makes an enormous difference.
Totally.
Yeah. We do a lot of, since we bought our trailer, we do a lot of long weekend trips. And it's just, I mean, we could drive an hour away. And this one thing about California is we're kind of spoiled that we could drive an hour and we're in a completely different environment. But I mean, just getting out of your town and just going and doing something and just detaching is huge for us.
And it's kind of what we're known for at the office. Like, we have tons of patients who are like, what are you guys up to this weekend? Like, what's up to, what's your next adventure? And everyone, it's a fun way to connect. And specifically this last time we took a week off vacation, both of us were like a little bit like, we did it, but we were like a little hesitant. Every one of our patients, it seemed like, was like, oh, I'm so excited, you're going away. Like, recharge the batteries. We had multiple patients who were like, recharge the batteries, come back giving us everything. Like, we love that. And no one batted an eye being like, oh, you're closed. We had multiple patients start brand new the week before we were leaving.
Yeah. And I'll share, when you were talking about, being connected and feeding off the energy of the group, Scott, if you haven't seen, 2 nights from now, Thursday night, new tribe coach. I mean, you've met Alex Grayu. He's stepping in as a tribe coach, and 7 p.m. CT, so at 5 p.m. your time, he's hosting the Breaking Past a Million tribe group call. He's doing that Thursday night, and he's going to be talking about what makes his exam super powerful. And we're talking about a guy who's all cash, one of the scoliosis experts in the country, $2.5 million all cash practice with one associate. Guy knows what he's doing. So he's not going to just be sharing about his exam, but he's going to be sharing, he's going to be mocking his recommendations conversation, which at that level, less than a minute. So good energy to feed off of. And it'll be recorded, put in the portal if you can't make it. Same, Luke, I don't know if you're on the call this morning, but I was mentioning to people that because it's a brand new call starting this month, and he's going to be doing it every month. Luke asks, when does it make sense to start adding therapy like shockwave, I'm hitting around 40 patient visits a day and don't see how I can still do that, plus add a hands-on therapy. Any advice? Scott, what would you say to that?
We have a tech that runs the software and the laser and can hook people up on decompression. It's real easy to train them. We just have it in the notes. So she walks in, she can see exactly what's going to be done. She handles everything. 95% of the time, I'm not doing those therapies. I might do the initial one, take the initial notes, but yeah, I don't always do it. So I mean, just have a tech, and that's her full-time position, is to do those therapies.
Yeah. Luke, does that answer? Like, you can unmute yourself. I'll just spotlight you, because that's really important. It's you're not the one doing the therapies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling that's what you might say. I'm just thinking kind of myself, like, how long does it kind of take to ramp that up so it makes sense to hire a part-time tech? But I guess if you're going to offer it, might as well just do it right. And,
Yeah.
obviously,
You bring on tech, pay them $20 an hour. That's, less than $2,000 a month. You have one person sign on for a therapy, that more than pays for itself. So, it's not a big of a discrepancy as you think. And so
I got you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And you can also work on block scheduling them too, like if needed. Because that's happened to us before, where there's times where we're just not as busy. We have some cancellations to reschedule, and we just were like, okay, see you tomorrow. And last time she's like, cool, see you tomorrow. And we'll just set her home a little bit earlier or whatever.
And start them. If you're worried, like, have the therapy day, like have, Mondays and Wednesdays you do therapies in the afternoon, and start with that, and just have a tech in the afternoons and see what that does for you. And then you'll find that you'll outgrow that pretty quickly, and then you'll just have someone there all the time.
Cool. Thanks.
Hey, Luke, stay on for a second, because you came onto Patient Master, I think, beginning of the year or end of last year. When was it? What month?
Yeah. When was that? I think it was around October of last year.
Okay. Was it last month? You had posted something that said, like, best month ever.
So it was in May. I was able to.
So this month.
Yep, it was this month. I reached my overhead. What my overhead is in 6 working days. Yeah,
Feels good, right?
it does feel good. So now I'm just looking for the next step. Yeah.
Awesome. All the rest, pure profit going to you. Well deserved.
Yes. I'm talking to Jamie. It's nice because I'm on vacation last week of this month. So now I'm not like all, worried about that. So it's nice.
Very cool. Where are you going for vacation?
We're going down to Florida, to the Panhandle area.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Luke. Good question too. All right, quick question, Scott. Dan asks, that therapy takes roughly 10 minutes a patient, right? Shockwave?
3.5 minutes. 600 waves, 3.5 minutes. Laser, 2.5 to 5, depending on the person. Decompression, 12 minutes.
And it's amazing, when you don't bill insurance, you don't have to do 7.5 minutes, which rounds up to 15 for a unit. You could do whatever is clinically necessary and charge whatever you want. And that's what's amazing about being your own boss and not being stuck in that paradigm. Also, there was another question. It might have been accidentally, but it came in private, so I'll just read it. How do you step out of the I'm the boss mode and get these A players to understand, I want you to give me ideas. If something I'm doing isn't working well, I want you to stand up to my idea and say, there's a better way. I found that sometimes people have a difficult time telling the boss that he, she may be wrong. Scott or Christina, how would you reply to
that? For me, I just always tell them, like, if you have an idea, just please come to me and tell me. Like, and I guess I try to say it as nicely as possible to make them feel open that they can come and talk to me about it. Worst case, if their idea isn't what we want to do, then, we'll have a conversation about it. And I'll tell them, this is why we do it. And, but I don't know. I just always try to make sure people feel comfortable enough to talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if they're not coming to you with ideas, they're probably not an A player. That's kind of the nitty-gritty of it.
Both of those are spot on. And yeah, both of those are spot on. Like an A player is going to come to you and from the very beginning, set up the relationship where it's a safe, like you encourage them to come to you. More likely, if they're not coming, it's not because you made it unsafe. It's because they're not an A player. Like it's unlikely chiropractors making their staff feel unsafe. Yeah.
I'm probably like, I don't even know if I'm an A player because I'm constantly coming to him to be like, we're going to retool this. We're going to change this. We're going to clean this up. And he's like, for the love of God, do that.
Yeah, Christina, I can vouch. You're an A player. Got it, girl. Okay. This was awesome. Scott and Christina, any last words? Just thinking about, you shared 3 different pillars. That's awesome because they're different from some of the last docs we've had and done these interviews with. Anything last you just would be valuable to share? I think chiropractors who, again, on their own island and feeling stuck.
Yeah, I mean, just do what feels good in your practice. It's your practice. You don't have to do what other people are trying to tell you to do and say, and just like be authentic and be the real you. And yeah, I mean, we've dedicated our lives to this, so we want it to be, you know, an awesome experience. So make 90% of what you do during the week awesome. Here's one.
Thanks, Scott. Christina, how about you? Any last words of wisdom?
It's going to sound very patient mastery of me, but do a meeting every week with your team. And that may open up those channels of communication with that A player having some ideas. Because maybe there's not been the platform. But I think that if all the things that we've done since I've started, there's been loads of them. But I think one of them is just everybody being on the same page. We talk about what we're grateful for. We talk about what our wins were for the week. And it helps us connect as a team because you're seeing your teammates, you know, more than you're seeing your family sometimes. So yeah, same as Scott, was make yourself an environment that you enjoy going to, with patients as well, like cool patients, cool employees. Yeah.
Awesome. And I like how you mentioned just a team meeting. When we created the collections breakthrough chart, that was one of the most obvious ones for docs stuck below 20,000 a month. It's so common. It's just me and a CA. We don't really need to do a meeting. We're always talking throughout the day. And it's shocking how many docs, even with above 20,000 a month or with more than one CA, don't do a weekly structured team meeting that has value, not some random hodgepodge team meeting where you just talk about the weather. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up because it's so easy and it's so left out in our profession. Cool. You guys rock. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. I love seeing the growth. I love seeing you multiple times a year in person at events. Will you guys be in Dallas in a month?
Yep.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. And yeah, Christina, you'll be helping out and teaching and all that. Yeah. For those of you listening, whether live or on a recording, whether you're stuck in the 20,000s a month range, like Scott was years ago, and like so much of the profession is, or really what we tell docs, if you're stuck below that 50,000 mark and you know you could do it better, you know you want to do it better, you know you want to take home more, help more people, and also do it in complete congruency and authenticity and not feel like a salesperson, not do anything that just you wouldn't want your own mother to experience. That is what we specialize in. We help docs get to the next level, feeling great in practice, working the hours you want to work, charging what you want to charge. It's not for everyone. That's why we start with a phone call with one of our coaches to really get under the hood of what's going on in your practice, what's missing. Depending on what's missing, can we fix that? Can we be the missing link? And if we can, we'll show you what we do. You could either go figure it out on your own or get our help. But it all starts with having a phone call. I'm dropping the link in the chat. You can click on that directly to apply for a phone call. Again, it's not for every chiropractor. We're very selective. You can tell the quality of character of Christina and Scott. There's no ego. There's no bragging. That's not patient mastery. There's not hierarchies. Everyone is there to support each other. And so we're very selective of who we allow in and who we say, not right now, not a fit, or come back when you show you can do these things on your own with all the free resources. That'd be an accurate statement, Scott and Christina, the community that's been building.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much again. You two are an amazing couple. I admire you both. And I look forward to seeing you in a month in Dallas. Cool. Thank you guys for watching, taking notes. You need anything, we'll be back on next month with another awesome member interview. And just keep rocking and rolling. Keep helping people get back to their life and know that you deserve an amazing life for doing that. All right, guys, be well. I'll see you soon.